Have you written a book and want to get it published? Then now's the time to call Page Publishing at 800-204-6099 and do it immediately. You see, they're looking for authors of all types of books. And unlike most publishers, Page Publishing will take the time to review most of the books submitted to them. And they'll even give you their feedback. And if they like what they read, Page Publishing will get your book into bookstores and for sale online at Amazon, the Apple iTunes Store, and other outlets. They'll handle everything: copyright protection, printing, cover art, publicity, and editing. So if you've written a novel, a children's book, a cookbook, inspirational work, a book of poetry, or biography, and want to get it published, then you need to call Page Publishing and do it immediately. Call 800-204-6099 now for your free author submission kit. Your road to fame and fortune could very well start with this simple phone call. For your free author submission kit, call Page Publishing at 800-204-6099.
This is the Page Publishing Book Club. I'm your host, Alice Stockton Rossini. Thanks for joining the club tonight. This is the place to come if you've written a book you haven't published yet, or if you've been thinking of writing a book and you just don't know where or how to get started. Every week, first-time authors and long-time authors talk about their process, their roadblocks, and the things in life that propelled them into action. Guaranteed you will hear someone who sounds just like you, except they've published a book and you haven't. We begin tonight with two authors who wanted to write so they could give back. On the line we have Lisa Gies, and the name of your book is Crokersville.
Yes, it is.
It's got to be a children's book.
It is.
All right. What's it about?
Well, I have a pond next door to my house here that I realized one night as I go to sleep, I listen to the frogs. And I hear them croaking every night. And I just went and built the story around the pond, where a little boy finds an imaginary, or he's not sure if it's imaginary or not, village of frogs where they go shopping, and there's different stores there, and the frogs sing at night. And then we have a dry spell, and the pond dries up there, which makes him question whether it's real or not. And eventually we get the rains that the pond comes back and the frogs come back louder and stronger.
This is a seasonal thing, right?
Yes and no. I mean, it is a summer, early fall type thing. By the middle of the fall, the frogs have left for the summer. So yeah, I would say it's seasonal.
Did the story come to you as you were laying in bed one night listening to the croaks?
I believe so. I just kind of started going with it. I just started coming up with these little things, and the more I looked at the pond when I took my dog out for a walk or went chasing the bears in the neighborhood, I just built on that, and I could actually stand at the pond now and visualize the book next to the pond.
Do you have any children?
No, we don't.
Oh, but there's a little boy in this story.
Yes.
Who sees all this.
Yes, there is.
Any music? I hear music on this one.
Nope.
The music of the croaking.
Oh, okay. Well, they do sing, every night after they're done splashing and having fun in their pond there. They all gather together with the crickets. You hear the crickets and you hear the frogs, and the fireflies are providing the light for them. And they do croak. When I get home from work at 12 o'clock and I go to bed, I still hear them croaking.
What's the takeaway here from this? They're little kids. What are they learning?
I think that they're learning that you can imagine anything. This may not be real, but if you imagine something, it's like the start of your dreams. Because that's what I feel is I imagine this story, and then putting it on paper, and then following through and having it published. That was like my imagination being the start of my dreams. And I think that if children can imagine, then they can build their dreams off those imaginations.
And maybe those dreams will come true, right?
Exactly.
How did you find Paige?
Actually, through my hometown newspaper on Long Island. I look at it online on the computer, and I saw a woman from 2 towns over where I grew up who actually had published a book recently with Paige.
She was doing publicity for her book?
Yes. Yeah, they had done a press release in the local paper for her book, and there was a picture of her and her book and the name of the company. And I said, wow, let me try that one. And that's where I got involved with them.
How was your experience?
It has been absolutely awesome. I had the opportunity to meet with Tom and Steve over at Page last week, and they are fabulous. But the person I give absolute kudos to is Nicole, who's been my guidance through this whole process. She has been so accommodating, so patient, so helpful. I just can't say enough about her.
What are you doing to get your book out there?
I'm trying to get the final glitches taken out of it, and then I already have done a lot of word of mouth. I hope to do some book signings here in the Poconos, and I'm going to be donating one of my copies to a school for a child that I used to take care of who had passed away, so I'm going to donate that to the school in his honor or in his memory.
That's wonderful.
And yeah, it's going to be a lot of word of mouth. We'll see what's happening, out and about here. But like I said, I hope to do some book signings nearby. And so far the response has been really good. I've been able to show some people the book, and everybody wants a copy.
And if everybody wants a copy, Lisa, that's a pretty good sign. Thanks so much for joining us. Our next author, Marilyn Mastbaum, wrote The Second Adoption. This is an autobiography about the horrors of being adopted by foster parents, finding family, and through faith, finding a way to let go.
Yes, ma'am. I have an older brother and sister. We were all three put out for adoption. It was during the Depression.
So you never knew your parents?
No.
And you wound up in a foster home?
It was a foundling home in Indianapolis, Indiana, during the 30s. So this is about all they had back then.
And then you were adopted when you were just over a year old. And how did your siblings find you?
Before my adopted mother passed away, I got a hold of some things that had all the information on it. And I tried to reach them, couldn't find them, but they found me after I moved to Florida. That was in 1996.
So what was that like?
That was the first time I couldn't talk. I was speechless, totally speechless from the shock.
I bet meeting your brother and sister for the first time must have been unbelievable. So, okay, and then you decided that you would write this book about what it was like with your foster parents.
Well, the type of home I grew up in, mother and father, neither one could show love for each other, so therefore there was no love in the home. And I ran away when I was 19, and I got on my own. Got into a lot of things that I shouldn't have gotten into, but nobody to guide me. So after 2 children, I finally got myself straightened up. Then I met my second husband, and we were married next year. We would have been married 50 years. And it was second time around for both of us.
That's great that you could have a happy marriage after all you went through. So, okay, what made you write the book?
I had to do something. I had so much hatred and disappointment and bitterness in my life, and I couldn't get rid of it. And I had come down to Florida to visit my daughter and took a test to get a job, and I didn't know how to use a computer at that time. And I thought, that's ridiculous. So I went back home, took a computer course at Ivy Tech, and got good grades on that. And the teacher said, just start writing something until you get used to it. And that's when my book started.
So the first thing that you did when you learned to use a computer was write a book?
Yes, ma'am. I tried typing it on a typewriter, tried doing it so my daughter could write it down. Nothing worked. But when I could see it on the screen, then tears flowed, and I was able to release.
So the next step was getting published?
This was the second time I tried to have it published. The first time it was turned down, and that was about 10 years ago. But this time I thought, well, I'll send it and see what they say. And they said, send it, please. We've seen a lot of adoption stories, but none like yours.
Marilyn, that's great. What is it that you want people to take away from your book?
It's done so that people who are going through things they think they can get no help with can see, yes, you can get rid of that bondage. You don't have to keep that junk in your system. It was not a good home. And I also tried to kill my adopted father, so it just had to all come out and get rid of.
And writing it down was enough? You didn't need, a shrink or, some kind of psychological help?
No. I'm a born-again Christian. I don't believe in psychiatrists. And then I started writing and completed it. It took me 10 years to write, but I got it all out.
Have you had people read your book? Have you gotten feedback?
Yes, because I used to have it just printed by printing shop, and I handed it out that way. And it's gone over a lot of places, but it just wasn't going far enough out to cover the people out there that need the help. That was the main reason for me writing it. Whatever I make on the book goes to missions at my church. I'm not keeping a dime of it.
Very nice, Marilyn. Very thoughtful. Next up, David Shearer. He's an anesthesiologist. He's written books, but mostly medical books. This is a book about his search for a woman who meant the world to him. It's called The House of Black and White, My Life and Search for Louise Johnson Morris. Tell us about your book, David.
Well, my book is a memoir about growing up in the suburbs of D.C. and rediscovering my childhood caretaker after a 31-year absence between us.
What happened to her?
Well, she left our family's employment in 1981 after working with us for 22 years and basically being like a mom to us kids. And I was in med school at the time, and so I discovered she left the family over mysterious circumstances, and it wasn't until 2012 I discovered she was alive and living in Macon, Georgia, her hometown, at the age of 90. So I went down to see her.
What was that like?
It was unbelievable. I flew down on Martin Luther King weekend in January of 2012 to the nursing home where she was in Macon, Georgia. I brought some presents for her and a bunch of childhood photographs of all of us when we were kids from 40 years before. And there she was in a wheelchair and kind of debilitated, but we made the connection, and I met all her family and all her people down there and saw the places she would tell me about from decades before, and it was amazing.
Did you ever find out what the controversy was, like why she left?
No, there was a controversy. My mom claims that she was stealing from the family, which I don't believe, and Louisa's son claims later on that it's because my parents wouldn't give her a raise. So it doesn't really matter to me what the truth is. She was still the greatest thing in the world, so I never knew the real reason why. It could be part of both, but when I was in my mid-50s, I decided I've had enough waiting. I'm going to see if she's alive. So I did some search engine stuff, and I found her son, finally, in Baltimore, and I called the number, no answer. So I went up myself and knocked on his door, no answer. Hadn't seen the guy in 45 years, so I slipped a note in the mailbox, and that night he called me, told me she was alive. I caught her just in time. She died 3 months later at the age of 90, and I was an honored speaker at her funeral. I was welcomed as family. I spoke at her funeral. I caught her just in time before she died.
Were you devastated by that?
I was not devastated because I knew that I finally found her and that she lived a full life, and she lived to be a healthy lady relatively until she was 90. So I was very satisfied and pleased that I found this great person, and that I finally made the connection. From the earliest memory I had, being less than 2, I had a black woman, a white woman, and a white dad. So I had 2 Jews and a Christian black woman as my 3 parents.
So what's your message, David?
Never give up on trying to find someone or connecting with somebody who meant something to them. That even if distance or time separates people, or the fact that you don't want to stir up old waters, if you want to contact somebody bad enough who is important to you, life is short. You better go do it. That's the takeaway message. Because I don't care if it's an old teacher, an old lover, an old family member, someone who guided you, a clergy person, whatever, a rabbi, whatever. If that person's important to you, don't waste time because they could die, and so can you.
Oh, David, that is so true. How many times do you think about someone who made a difference in your life, and you're thinking about them, and you're thinking about them, and you're thinking, I should really reach out to them, and you don't. And the next thing you know, it's too late. Don't do that. None of us should do that. All right, we have got to take a quick break. This is the Page Publishing Book Club. Don't go anywhere.
Attention all authors. Page Publishing is looking for authors. Have you written a book and want to get it published? Page Publishing will get your book into bookstores and for sale online at Amazon, Apple iTunes, and other outlets. They handle all aspects of the publishing process for you. Printing, cover art, publicity, copyright, and editing. Call 800-204-6099 now for your free author submission kit. That's 800-204-6099 for your free author submission kit.
Welcome back to the Page Publishing Book Club. I'm your host, Alice Stockton Rossini. Our next author's been writing since she was a teenager. All she needed was a little time, and when she finally got some, she made the best of it. Barbara Lamping wrote Mist Woman. Tell us about it, Barbara.
It's a love story adventure about a young Indian shaman who's having dreams of this